Welcome back to the Good Gluten-Free Girl podcast. My name is Lauren, and I am the host of this podcast. I've had my podcast now for about a year. So if you are joining the podcast for the first time, whether you saw my post about me using semiglutide or Ozempic, and you're here because you want to hear that journey, that's what this episode is all about. My podcast is available on YouTube as well, so you can watch the video on YouTube if you would like to. I know some people are big YouTube people, and so welcome if this is your first time. To give you a little bit more of a history about me, before I dive into this episode, I wanted to do a deep dive episode about my experience as a type 1 diabetic using a GLP-1 Ozempic. So I use semiglutide, which is like the generic version of Ozempic. And I wanted to share my experience. I'm so nervous about this. I'm nervous about sharing this episode because I have been just being crucified in my comments on Instagram and sometimes on TikTok, and I just have been so hesitant to share it. I've been using it for 6.5 months, and this is my first time really starting to speak out about it on social media because people are not happy about this, that I'm using a drug that's not FDA approved and that I'm promoting it and blah, blah, blah. But the reason I'm sharing it is because it has changed my life. I'll probably cry in this episode because it has changed my life so drastically. And if it can even change any other type 1 diabetic's life, even 5%, then it is worth me putting myself out there and being drastically judged and being crucified for this. It is worth it to me because if it can improve your diabetes management, even by 5%, which for me, it's changed my diabetes management 100%. And I have other people that I'm going to be referencing who have been using this for longer than I have, and it has improved their diabetes management by 20%, 30%, 40%. Like, it is just improving management so drastically. And of course, those of us who are using this, either whether it's Ozempic or semiglutide or Mounjaro or tirzepatide or any of these GLP-1 antagonist supplements, hormones, whatever you would like to call them. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Those of us who are using it have just seen a significant impact. So whatever form it is that you're using, there might be different side effects for each one. But these types of drugs have been being used for a very long time for type 2 diabetics who aren't making enough insulin, who are insulin resistant. And type 1 diabetics don't make insulin either, but some type 1 diabetics do make some insulin. Not every type 1 diabetic's management looks the same. And that is something that took me so long to learn. So let me give you my history of my diabetes diagnosis in a nutshell. I've had celiac disease for 8 years, and I've lived with that for 6 years. I lived with that before my type 1 diagnosis. And again, a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are going to be controversial, and I'm putting myself out there 100%. And because I have celiac disease, I'm immunocompromised. And sometimes if I get gluten, it affects my immune system, right? Then my immune system is compromised. And when COVID came, and it was a virus, right? And any virus can trigger an autoimmune disease. So I was really worried about getting COVID and worried about getting the COVID vaccine because there just weren't enough studies at the time, right as COVID was happening and right as the first vaccine was released. There wasn't enough evidence that it's not affecting autoimmune patients, but they were telling people, like, if you have heart conditions or if you have certain autoimmune diseases, like, you shouldn't get the vaccine. And I felt very strongly that I shouldn't get the vaccine. And a whole year went by that the vaccine was available, and I just still didn't get it because I was just really nervous and I was really hesitant to get it. But then, it had been almost 2 years since COVID, like March 2020. And my husband had surprised me for my birthday with tickets to Europe. And I knew I had to get vaccinated in order to go, which in hindsight, I just shouldn't have gotten it. And we should have just postponed our trip because now you don't need a COVID vaccine to travel anymore. But I ended up getting the vaccine after it had been out for, I don't know, 18 months. And I feel like there was more information about studies, blah, blah, blah. And so I ended up getting the vaccine. no joke, within 8 weeks of getting my vaccine, I started developing my type 1 symptoms: excessive thirst, excessive peeing, fatigue, just like a coiny taste in my mouth, drastically losing weight, the all telltale symptoms of type 1 diabetes. And when I got diagnosed with type 1, I was 31 years old, and I went almost in DKA. I went into the emergency room. My blood sugar was at like 630, and I was in the hospital for 2.5 days trying to get my blood sugar down. And then, I had my appointment with a diabetes clinic, and they just taught me how to use insulin, and they put me on insulin. And of course, that brought my blood sugar down, and I started managing using insulin, but I did not need as much insulin as they were giving me. And so after about 2 weeks, I went back to my appointment and I said, every time I take insulin, I am like plummeting into the 30s, 40s, 50s. And I'm talking like 4 low blood sugars a day. I am not doing well. I do not know how to manage this. I don't want to take insulin. It is making me I am not well. And my doctor said, okay, well, why don't we lower your dose of long-acting insulin? So I lowered my dose, because they originally had started me at 20 units, which is what they give a standard patient. Like, my brother has type 1, and that's what he takes. And I'm like, okay, so they just kind of put me on this standard carb count. This is how much Lantus you're going to take. And it was killing me. Like, I was having so many hypoglycemic events multiple times a day. And I was just like, I'm not going to freaking take insulin. Like, I just am going to see what my body does. But at this time, I didn't have a CGM yet, because my insurance didn't have enough record to show me that I was type 1 diabetic, and insurance is stupid. And so I had to finger prick. So I was finger pricking like 30 times a day, because my blood sugar was causing me so much stress. It was so mentally and emotionally taxing to get diagnosed with this. And on top of it, I have all my other food things. I can't have gluten. I can't have dairy. I can't have soy. I have all these other things. And then add another disease that it all surrounds around food and carb counting, and knowing, just understanding how to bolus for food. It was just so hard. Like, oh, I hated it. I hated it so much. Anyway, so after a month, I go back to my doctor and I said, don't know what's going on, but I have stopped taking my long-acting insulin, and I've been weaning myself off of it. And she was like, okay, you probably actually have type 1 LADA, which is like a latent onset adult diabetes. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? And she said, well, we know that you have the antibodies, that they're attacking your pancreas. We just don't know how long that's going to last. Like, you could honeymoon for a while. We don't know how long. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? And she said, let's decrease your dose of long-acting insulin. Let's decrease your dose of short-acting insulin for meals. And I said, okay. So I basically went from taking 20 units to like taking 4 units of long-acting insulin. So then I started taking 4 units, and I started doing so much experimentation with my dosage, which, if you have type 1 diabetes, you probably did this in the beginning of your diabetic journey as well. But because I have latent adult onset diabetes, it's still type 1 diabetes, but my honeymoon phase could potentially last, several years. And so I just was starting to feel like I was kind of getting the hang of it, but still not, like, still having tons of low blood sugars. Finally got a CGM, and that helped a ton, but it still was just so all consuming, and for my mental health and my physical health. And I just started putting on more weight. I was having such a hard time managing. And then so I was kind of getting the hang of my management. And of course, depending on like what I ate, or if I was going on vacation, I was able to figure out my dose for long acting and for short acting. And I just kind of figured out that pre-bolusing just didn't work for me. I would only ever correct after a meal, like 45 minutes after a meal, I would do a correction dose, and it was usually a half a unit. So I had asked my doctor if I could get the quickie pens, which are like the kid size pens that have half doses. So I'm just using like a half unit to correct my blood sugar. And very, very rarely would I be running high. Of course, like when I'm insulin resistant, when I'm PMSing, or I'm on my period, I would dose differently, all those things that go into play when you have diabetes. So fast forward and rewind. So last October, I had a friend reach out to me and she had said, have you ever heard of Honey Health? And I said, no, what's Honey Health? And she said, it's a diabetes app. It's kind of like social media, like it's a scrolling app, but it's only a diabetes education app. And it's not social media. It's not like a public app. Like it is for diabetics. And so I thought, oh, sure, what the heck? I'll check it out. So I downloaded this app. It's a free app. And I started just like scrolling like you would on Instagram Reels or TikTok or something. And every single video was an education video about something relating to diabetes. Technology, there were technology content creators on there. There are exercise and wellness. There's nutritionists. There's groups specifically for parents. There's groups specifically for type 2 diabetics. There's groups specifically for insulin resistance or PCOS. Like there were just all these different groups. And I spent hours that first weekend that I got Honey Health just educating myself. Like it's a free app, and it's like you can spend as much time as you want on that app just learning there's endocrinologists on the app, there's nutritionists, there's functional medicine. Like there's just so many creators that are on this app that create specifically to teach and educate diabetics or parents of children with type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. Anyway, and I just was like, I have learned so much from this app, more than I've ever learned from an endocrinology appointment, like just to be completely honest. And I just became obsessed. And then my friend who had originally told me about this, she was like, I'd really like to connect you with the creators of Honey because you have a specific niche. There are so many people who have type 1 and celiac disease, and there needs to be a place inside Honey for people to get gluten-free content and who also have diabetes. So then I signed on to be a creator for this app. And so then I started sharing on the app my gluten-free life and tips for being gluten-free and also being diabetic. And of course I would share, how I would bolus for a certain gluten-free meal, or what my meal prep looks like, or how I deal with XYZ, whatever it may be. Because I live with both, I have kind of a unique outlook on celiac disease because I also have type 1. So, I've invited people through my social media to come and join. If you have diabetes, it is such a great resource for individuals and parents because it's free and it is like having an endocrinologist in your pocket. And then inside the app as well, there are different groups that you can join, and each group has video content and a chat option. So you can join all these chats. You can ask other diabetics that are inside the group. And it's just a really great resource. So after a couple of weeks of being on the app, and I signed up to be a creator and I started creating my own content for the app, I had started seeing a doctor, specifically an endocrinologist. She has a group inside the app, and she started talking about the benefits that she was seeing and studies that she had been researching on GLP-1 or Ozempic, or tirzepatide or Mounjaro or Semiglutide. These medications are all a GLP-1. And so I started watching all her videos, and then I started referencing the studies that she was talking about, and that there were patients that were either recently diagnosed or were children patients, or were still honeymooning, and they were taking Ozempic as a way to manage their diabetes. So I started doing all of my own research, and I had messaged her inside the group, and I just said, I think that I need this. I am still honeymooning. I am not insulin dependent. I do not require the same amount of insulin that, let's say, my brother does, because my brother has been insulin dependent for like 8 years. And so I said, I'm going to talk to my endo about this. So I went to my endo appointment and I said, listen, I've been doing my research, and I referred to this study specifically and telling her everything that I had learned on honey. And she said, you would be a really great candidate for this. And I said, let's freaking do it. So she prescribed me with Ozempic. Insurance declined it. They wouldn't let me get Ozempic because it's only prescribed and it's only approved for type 2 diabetics, which is just bogus, makes me so mad. But she said, I can prescribe you Semiglutide, or I can prescribe you Mounjaro. Both of those are medications that we have been giving our type 2 patients in this clinic for a very long time, and I think that you would be a great candidate for it. And I said, okay, Mounjaro was more expensive, so I went with Semiglutide, and I had to get it made at a compound pharmacy. So I had a compound pharmacy make it for me. I spent $170 on my first vial, and that first vial lasted me about 2.5 months. So in that time, I didn't fill any insulin prescriptions. And I've been super lucky with the Facebook Marketplace, been getting my CGMs. So I haven't actually had to spend any money on diabetes supplies since January 1st, which has been a huge blessing. And I'm so grateful for Facebook groups and things like that that help people who are in need. But so I spent $170 on my first vial, and I started at the lowest dose, which is point. Oh, you know what? I have a note here in my desk that I want to make sure I get this right. 1 second, guys. Let me just find it here. Yeah, so the first dose is 0.25. So you start at the lowest dose and you do that for 4 weeks. And when I had originally first started, my doctor said, stop taking short-acting insulin. You're not going to take any short-acting insulin to pre-bolus or correct or anything. You'll still take your long-acting. So when I started it, I have it in a note as well, because I documented every single week of this so that I could have evidence just in case like somebody needed to use me as a study, because I am being my own guinea pig here, you know? So January 24th was the first day that I started, and I had been taking 8 units of long-acting insulin, and I had for months. Like that's my dose that I take. So 8 units of long-acting insulin. And then my doctor said, do not take any short-acting insulin. Let's just see what this does to your blood sugar. So I gave myself the 0.25 milligram dose, and I took that dose. You only take it once a week. So right now, fast forward 6 months, I only take 1 injection once a week for my diabetes management. I do not do multiple daily injections. I don't take long and I don't take short. And here is how I got there. So after 4 weeks, I increased my dose. And after 1 week, actually, okay, let me rewind. After 1 week of taking semaglutide, I lowered my long-acting insulin dosage from 8 to 6. And then after 3 weeks, I lowered my dose from, let's see. Oh, I went on vacation. So I went on vacation. And so I did increase my dose because I always tend to eat more and more indulge on the vacation. But by week 8, I was down to 5 units of long-acting insulin. And then by week 10, I was down to 0 units of long-acting insulin. So it took me 10 weeks to wean myself off of long-acting insulin. But I had stopped taking short-acting insulin right away, because if you take short-acting insulin on top of a GLP-1, you're more likely to have more lows. So my doctor had said, don't take any, only use it if you need to correct. And so stopped taking short-acting insulin right then and there, which, you know, based on my story before, I was only taking like anywhere from a half a unit to 2 units max a day. My insulin needs are just not the same as somebody else's, because I am still honeymooning. Of course, 5 years from now, my diabetes management is going to look different. But if I can prolong this honeymoon phase, then of course, I'm going to do whatever I can to prolong needing to take insulin. And also, when you get type 1 diabetes, your pancreas doesn't just stop producing insulin. There are 5 hormones that your body stops producing, and we need those other hormones. And so then that plays a factor in like feeling satiated and actually having hunger, like having the cues to stop eating. And a lot of people tend to, you know, maintain weight or gradually gain weight with type 1 diabetes, because we don't have that hormone telling us, hey, you're full, you don't need to keep eating, or you don't need to eat again in an hour, you know? So I've learned a lot about that. And specifically, I've learned so much from Ginger on Instagram. I think her Instagram account is called My T1D Diary. Ginger, I'm going to pull it up actually, because Ginger, I would recommend following her, because she has helped me a lot too. And she has had diabetes for 25 years and she takes Ozempic. And so after talking to her, I was like, you don't have to just be honeymooning to take Ozempic. She has had diabetes for 25 years and she takes Ozempic as a form of management. Is she off insulin? No. But does it improve her diabetes management drastically? Yes. And you can go to her Instagram, and she also has a group inside Honey as well. And she has been documenting that and shares way more in depth her journey of being a like lifelong diabetic and her Ozempic journey. Her Instagram account is called gingerviera.t1d. I will link it in the show notes. But so after I had seen that she was doing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe there are other type 1 diabetics that are using this. So a couple of weeks ago, like maybe a month ago, I posted on my story on Instagram and said, I've been using semaglutide or Ozempic to manage my diabetes, and it has been absolutely life-changing. I would love to know if anyone else has. And my cousin, she messaged me and she said, I'm so happy that you're talking about this. It's like such a taboo topic to talk about because Ozempic has been being used as a weight loss drug and there are all these side effects and blah, blah, blah. First of all, I have been documenting every single week, like in my notes app, I have documented every single week that I have taken my injection and any of my side effects. You want to know what my only side effect has been? Mild, and I'm talking very mild nausea 48 hours after I take my injection. It is manageable, doable. I can still live my everyday life. I just have some slight nausea. Once I got into higher doses, which I gradually got into higher doses once I got up to like 17, 18 weeks, I did started experiencing some constipation, but then I started supplementing with, what is it called? Magnesium. And now I poop every day. So that has just been like, that has fixed that problem. I just take the dose of magnesium glycinate and I poop every day. And I don't have nausea anymore. I only got nausea like the first 8 to 10 weeks. I don't have any symptoms anymore when I take it. My body's used to it. It's used to the hormone. It's using it effectively. And, that's been great. Anyway, back to my cousin. So she messaged me and she just said, I've been on this for 14 months and it has been life-changing for me. And I said, let's Marco Polo. I need to talk to you about this. We Marco Poloed for about an hour and I was just asking her, what made her decide to do it. And she just said, I had just heard that it was like good for diabetes management. So I had asked my doctor and my doctor said that I could take it. And so she says she also just uses semaglutide. She gets it at a compound pharmacy and she's had type 1 for 9 years. So she is an insulin dependent. She's on a pump. And she said, well, I had first asked her, I said, what has been like the most drastic difference for you? And she said, I don't get any low blood sugars. Like I don't have low blood sugar. And I had said to her that has been the same experience for me. And one second, sorry guys. I had said, that has been the same experience for me. I haven't had a low blood sugar since I started taking semaglutide. And she said, I can't even remember. She said, I can't even remember the last time I had a low blood sugar event. And she said, I've had diabetes for 9 years. My kids have seen me like almost dead. My husband has seen me almost dead so many times. And I don't remember the last time that I had a low blood sugar event that I had to treat with some sort of sugar or glucose or something. And I was like, me too. That has been my same experience, which is like one of the reasons why I'm like, this is for every type 1 diabetic. If it can prevent you from having lows, 100% worth anything. It is just, what do you have to lose? Just try it. Like that's how I feel. I'm like, you have nothing to lose. You already have type 1 diabetes. It's already so hard. You're dealing with low blood sugars. You're dealing with high blood sugars. And she said, I probably take more than, she said, I take probably 50 to 60% less insulin than I did before. So it's decreased her insulin needs drastically, and it has stopped her from having low blood sugars. Need I say any more? Like, so then I'm telling my brother, and my brother's like, ooh, I'm going to ask my doctor. And his doctor said, yeah, let's do it. It could be really great. So then his doctor prescribed him semaglutide and he's doing it and he just started his journey. So I'm excited to learn more about how it's affected his type 1. But the low blood sugar thing has been the best part of it for me because that was one of the hardest parts for me a year ago to deal with. Like I'm a mom, I have young children, and having low blood sugars is just not something I want to deal with and have time, quite frankly, to deal with. And so just not having any low blood sugars. So in the last 6 months, I have had 3 low blood sugar events, and they have all been from me taking one single unit of a correction dose when I should have just waited it out. And then my blood sugar plummeted down into the 50s. Occasionally I'll have a blood sugar alert saying that I'm low, but I'll be 70 because my Dexcom is set to 70 to alert me if I'm low, and it will beep if I'm at 69. And I'm not going to correct it. I'm like, maybe I'll go have a couple crackers or something, but I'm not like needing a juice box or like anything. Like I can totally be fine in between 65 and 70. Um, so yeah, so then after I had talked to my cousin about it, she just said, like, I hope more and more people are willing to share their stories about it because it can help improve your diabetes management. And this is the one thing that I'm like, people are getting after me in my comments saying, like, you should not be promoting this, that you're going to wean yourself off insulin. And I'm saying, if there is another type 1 diabetic adult who gets diagnosed and is still honeymooning, this is the best course of action to take to prolong your honeymoon phase, to reduce the amount of insulin that you need, to get you off insulin, to potentially prolong your honeymoon phase and prevent you from needing to go on insulin. Because once you're on insulin, then more problems just arise, more low blood sugar events arise, more yo-yoing of blood sugars arise. And like I looked at my Clarity app a couple of days ago and I made a video about this in honey, but I chose 90 days, and in the last 90 days my time in range is 94%. And in the last 7 days, like in my app, if I go to my Dexcom app, if I go to like my last 14 days, 97% in range. Like I am just in range way, like my percent is just insane. I don't have highs. I don't have lows. Of course, occasionally I want to go out for pizza or I'm going to have ice cream because I'm PMSing and I'm going to maybe run a little bit higher for a little bit longer, but I still don't take any insulin for that because of the semaglutide, it will bring me down on my own. I never correct anymore. I've learned the hard way that if I correct even with a single unit, I will plummet down into the high 40s, low 50s, which I just don't want to enjoy. I just don't enjoy that. So, if that means that I'm going to have 1 to 2% of high time in out of range, that's fine with me. I'm totally fine with that. My A1C has gone down 2 points in the last 6 months. I have also lost 22 pounds, which I still have more weight I want to lose. I have put on over 25 pounds since I was diagnosed with type 1. I've had a really hard time managing my weight with type 1 diabetes, and I have been able to lose weight. I focus pretty heavily on protein intake. I exercise every single day besides Sundays. Sundays are my rest days, but I exercise, I weight train, I do moderate cardio, and I eat protein and I track my macros. Those are things that I do because I know that there is potential risk for muscle mass loss, but not if you're doing it the right way. Not if you are being conscious of your food, being conscious of your exercise, and you're not just withering away. Now, of course, this drug was made for people to lose weight, and a lot of people use it to lose weight, but it also kickstarts and jumpstarts a health journey for them because once they're able to lose weight, they're more motivated to get up and go for a walk. They're more motivated to go to the gym. They're more motivated to eat healthy. I did not start this with zero intention, zero desire whatsoever to lose weight. It has been an added perk for sure, which I really am glad that has been an added perk because I did have weight to lose. That was so hard for me to lose as a type 1 diabetic. I don't know about you guys, but it's just been so hard for me to lose weight. So I am grateful that I've lost that weight and I still am working really hard. Right now I signed up for, I have a personal training coach that I just signed up to do a 6-month program that's like focused on, like weight training and calorie deficit and, getting in your steps and tracking your macros and getting enough protein and all of those things. And it's because I haven't lost weight in quite a while. I've lost about 24 pounds in the last 6 months, but it's been a while since I've lost a drastic amount of weight. And I wouldn't even say my weight loss has been drastic. Like I've been consistently losing 2 pounds every week with semaglutide. And again, I have weight to lose. So if you are in a position where you're like, I don't want to lose weight, I don't need to lose weight, don't increase your dose. You stay at the lowest dose and you see what that does to your blood sugar. You see what that does to your A1C. You see what that does to your time in range. You see what that does to your low glycemic events. Like, don't increase your dose. You don't have to. I only increased my dose every month because I wanted to lose some weight. But now that once I get to a weight goal that I want to be at, I will be weaning myself back down to a lower maintenance dose of the semaglutide. Now, my doctor did tell me, of course, this is all case by case. I know people are going to judge me, but whatever. It has changed my life, and it has changed the lives of other people who have type 1 diabetes as well. So I'm going to share it because it's been amazing. But now I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, well. Yeah, but if it can change your life and it can improve your diabetes management, again, even by 5%, 10%, it is 100% worth it. What do you have to lose? Get a prescription, start at the lowest dose, and just start tracking and seeing what it does to your blood sugar. I'm going to do a report back because I asked my brother like what his experience has been, and I haven't heard back from him yet, but it's going to affect people differently. Some people do have more side effects, like more nausea, vomiting, some people have diarrhea. I think it's because when you're giving your body a hormone, it's something that your body's not used to. Just like when women get pregnant, they're starting to have way more hormones being injected into their little systems because they're trying to grow a baby, and then women are nauseous. And then eventually your body your body adjusts to the hormones, and then you're not sick anymore. And that's what this is kind of like. You're giving yourself a hormone. It's like giving yourself a hormone and your body needs to adjust to it. Like I said, I was sick for the first couple of weeks, only on the day or the day after I gave myself my injection, but I don't get sick from it anymore at all. I inject myself once a week, and that is my sole diabetes management. And of course, everything's case by case. Everyone's case is going to be different. But if you could talk to your doctor about it and just say, more and more studies are coming out that a GLP-1, you don't even have to say Ozempic, just a GLP-1 medication is helping diabetics improve their management drastically. I'm wondering if I can try it, if I can do a trial of it. Insurance may not cover it. You may have to pay out of pocket for it. I think it's very, 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 very rare for insurance to cover it. You'll have to pay out of pocket for it. But if you want to do a trial of it and just see, like give yourself the, 4 to 8 weeks of trying it and see what it does, it may drastically improve your diabetes management and be worth every single penny that you pay for it. That has been the case for me. Of course, my diabetes management might look different in 5 years, but as of right now, my endo told me that this is most likely going to be my diabetes management indefinitely until things change. So 6.5 months in, and it has been a huge blessing. It has changed my life. Diabetes is not a burden to me anymore. And that's huge. 1 year ago, I could not have said that. And I think that a lot of other diabetics who are doing this, which there are other diabetics sharing on honey. Ginger is sharing on honey. Sweat by Sammy is sharing. Her name's Type 1 Sammy on Instagram. I will link her page as well. They're all sharing what Ozempic or semaglutide or a GLP-1 is doing for them and how it's changing their diabetes management. So I'm scared to release this episode, but if you are here because you saw my Instagram reel or you are on honey or you just wanted to hear the deep dive on this, thank you for being here. I'm really putting myself out there to be judged and to be attacked in the comments, but it's important to me. I hope that within 3 to 5 years, a GLP-1 medication is covered by insurance for type 1 diabetics, because I think that it is the next step in the right direction for diabetes management. That is my personal opinion. Anyway, thank you for being here. I am obviously an open book, happy to chat with you about this. If this is something that you're considering and want to talk to me about more, you are more than welcome to email me. You are welcome to Instagram, DM me. I will send you a voice memo back and give you my thoughts, and be an advocate for yourself. Tell your doctor about it. Tell them you're willing to pay out of pocket for it. You want to try it. You want to do a trial and see how it affects your blood sugar, see how it affects your A1C. And I just hope that you have the courage to do so. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in and for being here. I hope that those of you who had messaged me and said, I can't wait to hear, you found this helpful, and it gives you some hope and some courage that maybe diabetes is going to get easier, right? We are always hoping that diabetes management can improve and get easier. And I think that we are heading that direction. I think that GLP-1 is the answer to that, in my personal opinion. Of course, I'm not a doctor. I can't give you medical advice or tell you. I'm just telling you my personal experience. And if you talk to your endo about it and your endo thinks it could be a good option to trial it and test it out and see what it does, then what's the harm in asking? So I hope you guys tune in next week and subscribe. Please leave a rating and a review. Share on your Instagram stories if this episode helped you, and tag me, and share with any other diabetic friends that you might have that could benefit from hearing my experience with semaglutide. And I will talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.